Every Sunday night, my family makes a point to sit down to a nice home-cooked meal where we recount the stories of our day and share nice bonding moments. My mother made a delicious dish of butternut squash and green peas just last week, and I love butternut squash and green peas. But my brother, on the other hand, despises these foods. You know, where I see good food, he sees the equivalent of bitter poison. In fact, this situation reminds me a lot of the anonymous quote, "What is food to me is to others bitter poison." And this quote doesn't just relate to the food on our plates. No, this is a metaphor for society in that too often people don't possess enough optimism that they need to succeed. This is a huge problem, and to examine it further, first we'll look at why we don't have enough optimism through the human pessimism complex. Next, we'll look at the application and the problem therein in the movie Frozen, and not the one you think, before finally looking at a solution through the emulation of the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. So, we know that the problem is, too often in our society, people lack the optimism that is beneficial to succeed in their lives. You know, where some people go for the gold and see the food in every situation, people, on the other hand, who are pessimistic, see the bitter poison. And this is exactly where the human pessimism complex comes into place. It's a psychological principle that essentially dictates that it is human nature to be pessimistic. We like to think that by thinking about the bad in every situation, we won't get the feeling of rejection and we won't be surprised if something bad actually happens. You know, earlier today, I received a huge chemistry assignment and I was already thinking to all the possible failures that it could occur. I'll get all these problems wrong, or I'll forget how to do it, and I'll get a bad grade in the class. The reason we're pessimistic is because it can literally be against our biology to see the food in every situation. We would only like to see the bitter poison. But what happens when someone only sees the bitter poison? Well, the real-life application of human pessimism is seen in the 2010 movie Frozen. That's right. 3 years before Anna and Elsa had their infamous dispute, we follow the story of three friends, Jack, Dan, and Parker, on their trip to the beautiful Yosemite National Park in the winter, where they're riding the ski lift. The three friends love the ski lift and make every possible occasion an occasion to ride that ski lift. It's the last day of the season, and they want to get on the ski lift one last time. So they do. But as they're on the ski lift, the park gets evacuated due to a storm warning, leaving them stranded on the ski lift. The three friends are fending for themselves now, and the first friend, Jack, tries to jump off. He tries to make a 40-foot jump, breaking both of his legs. Now, Jack has the option to move. He has the option to get off the mountain. But through his pain and through his pessimism, he ends up staying on that hill and dying. He saw his situation as a bitter poison and didn't look to see the possible good or food in the situation. But we don't have to be like Jack from Frozen. We don't have to fall victim to human pessimism. No. We can emulate the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and her efforts and learn why optimism will always be the best option in avoiding the bitter poison that some people would like to see. The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt follows the story of a woman named Kimmy Schmidt and her recent move to New York City. Now, Kimmy Schmidt is in New York City with no career, little to no money, and basically no one who cares for her. But does Kimmy Schmidt care? Absolutely not. Kimmy sees the opportunities in every situation, learning to actually land a job as a babysitter, land a good friend in Titus Andromedon, and finally, benefit in New York City. She makes it big and makes her dream come true, all because she had optimism. See, without optimism, if she actually saw her situation as bitter and poisonous, as the author of this quote would like to have us believe, then she would never have succeeded to the extent that she did. Today, we examine the quote, "What is food to me is to others bitter poison." And through my experience with my liking of food and my brother seeing this food as bitter poison, we learned that too often in our societies, we lack the optimism that can be beneficial to succeeding in our life. First, we looked at why this happened in the human pessimism complex, learning that it can literally be against our biology to have real optimism. Next, we saw the implication of this pessimism through the movie Frozen, where someone jumped off a ski lift, and rather than being optimistic about the situation, where they could have easily gotten help and gotten an escape with their life, they chose to be pessimistic. They chose to lay there and die, because they saw their situation as bitter, and maybe even a bit poisonous. But finally, we learned that by emulating the unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt and being optimistic about every situation, we can reap positive impacts on our lives and the world around us. So the next time you deal with bitter food, will you see it as bitter food, or will you see it as good food and be optimistic about it?
Okay, you fucked up the